Have I heard of carbon? My response is please stop bothering me about the Apple M1 chip. Please stop bothering me about what is my opinion about Bluebird Blop Linux distro. So guys, the carbon question, this is triggering me here. Not because of anything to do with carbon at all. It is the following thing, guys. The fact that multiple people have this question is it's a product of the current internet environment that we have built, which is about propagating shallow news at very high speed, and things just sort of, go into and out of being vogue to talk about what is the current thing this week, right? And the thing that you should realize is if you zoom out and see that pattern, ignore particular instances. But if you zoom out and look at that pattern as a whole pattern and what comes from it, almost none of those things are very important by definition. And therefore, because they only lasted a day or a week. Therefore, if this is a major source of where you get your ideas from or what you think about things or what you're interested in, you're preventing yourself from having high quality thoughts in a certain sense. And this is very serious to me. I mean, a little bit of it's fine, right? But, I'm here on the Twitch channel and every time there's a new thing, people are asking me about it. So like in aggregate, the Twitch chat brain is a brain that has a very poor information diet, is another way to say it. And that shouldn't be that surprising, but it is how it is, right? This will actually keep you from being a really good programmer in the long term because it's the wrong kind of thought. It is not like we need people who are competent and who can solve hard problems, and building competence is not a short attention span thing, and solving hard problems is not a short attention span thing. So we're just really not handling ourselves very well with where we place our mental attention. And this could have very large consequences in the short term, like even within the next year or two. So it bothers me. That's all I'm saying. All about the hot takes, it's empty calories. Yeah, but even like hot take implies controversial, right? But like people almost don't know or care anymore that there's something to do with your attention besides go on Twitter and see, or go on Hacker News or Reddit and see what people are talking about right this second. And the problem is, done over years, that's going to damage your brain. No exaggeration. It may have already damaged your brain. Hopefully in a way that's recoverable, but damage, absolutely. And I'm speaking from experience from both this phenomenon and previous ones, right? So I do less Twitter than a lot of people, but I was doing a fair amount of it. And like, it's just a way, if you're not feeling 100% motivated and you want to just kind of casually do some stuff while you work today, it's very easy to go on like Twitter or whatever and read some stuff. And I was noticing that my attention span was pretty short for a lot of things. It wasn't short for programming still. I was doing fine at programming, but I think that's because I built all my programming habits. But like I didn't want to read a book, right? And in fact, where I would claim that I wanted to read a book and then wouldn't read much for like a year. And then, like that has consequences just on your mental development. Now that part I fixed, but I grew up before the internet. So what happens to somebody who's like 10 years old today, right? Now, I did not grow up before television. And back during the television days, when people watched TV, which I did a lot, there was this commonly understood thing like, oh, don't watch too much television, it'll rot your brain, right? And we were kind of sarcastic about it. We said, oh, whatever. In retrospect, that was totally right. It did rot all of our brains. And I probably would actually be measurably smarter today if I hadn't spent so much time watching television, and I probably would have been able to do more faster in life, and I probably would be a lot more competent at what I do. Like, in a major way, not in like a barely noticeable way, like in a major way. It is very clear to me when I look at how I spent all my time back then that that's the case. Being honest about these things is important. And so I don't see why, I think the modern internet stuff is worse than television was. Because at least if you're watching a shitty, episode of Airwolf or something, I forget if that was a half-hour show or an hour show, but it at least had a consistent narrative for the length of its runtime, which is not something you get from a lot of other things. Do I think it affected my intelligence? Yes. I think I'm less smart than I would have been. Probably. It certainly affected my ability to exercise my intelligence. And therefore it took me a lot longer to get where I would have otherwise been, right? Like, in some sense, there's not that much of a difference between being smart and knowing how to use your intelligence. Like, you could argue for, whatever the baseline biological capacity is or whatever, but like, it became very clear to me at some point that knowing how to use your intelligence is a thing. And if you don't know how to use it, you might as well not have it. It's probably hard to know how much it rotted my brain. No, well, but I can look at how I spent my time back then versus how I spend it today and what the outcomes are. Twitch audience member, most interactions can basically only be very superficial and very simple. Yeah, I mean, it's true, but I mean, let's take another one of my pet peeve questions. The how do I get started programming question, right? I hate that one, as frequent viewers to this channel know, but it's still better because it's not asking about gossip. It's ostensibly asking about an actual skill that somebody could practice and that has an intrinsic benefit. Whereas, like, did you hear about carbon, or what did you think about the M1, or whatever is just gossip, which has a function. I mean, the reason human beings gossip is because gossip has a function, but like, there is such a thing as way too much of that, and we're way down the way too much. You get the how to get started question, it can be overwhelming. No, I don't think so. I think anyone, to be very honest, most people asking the how to get started question are not programmers and won't be. It's like, it's a self-filtering question. It's like, if you're asking that question, you're not a programmer. That's another reason why it annoys me. Even though you deleted all your social media stuff 4 years ago, when you're demotivated, it's so easy to find a way to waste your day on useless stuff, like lurking on Twitch. Even YouTube recommended videos are like 1-minute clips. Yeah, I mean, I understand that mode, right? There is this mode where you're not that motivated, and it's just very easy to get the very small feeling of reward or distraction or whatever from watching these small videos and stuff, for sure. But then you feel worse after that because then you spent the whole fucking day doing that 30 days in a row or whatever. So, the trick there's two things, right? So one trick is just to notice that pattern. Just see it. Just keep seeing it. You don't even have to do anything about it at first. Just keep seeing it. And then after enough seeing it, maybe you eventually can know what to do. Like, often if you just keep observing the pattern, it'll naturally give you the ability to break out of it, because it lets your subconscious wrestle with what's going on. The second thing, though, is to understand, like, okay, you're feeling demotivated or kind of bad or kind of down right now. So what? Like, who cares? Like, is that really that big of a deal? And if it's not, then why shouldn't you just do whatever you would normally do if you weren't feeling down? That's actually a very powerful mindset to have, right? Just whatever you're feeling is just what you're feeling right now. It doesn't have a lot more depth or consequence than that. And that's weird because we're in the society that's often feeling fetishist, right? Like we have this entire industry that wants you to go talk about your feelings for $70 an hour. So of course they tell you that that's how to solve your problems, but it's really not. The right way to solve them is just to realize your feelings are just your feelings. And, it's nice to have happy feelings, but by definition, we don't have happy feelings all the time. And so just, accepting that is actually very powerful. In engineering, you call it admiring the problem. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. It's not hard to put the phone down, but it's hard to stop yourself from picking it up instinctively. But you could increase the amount of work required. So for example, you could just power your phone off, so that if you pick it up, you have to wait through a boot of the phone, right? And then you put a SIM password. Do whatever you need to do to fix that. You think it's pretty normal to ask and not a sign of the downfall of society. Okay, well, here's the thing. Look around at any technology that is not software. Even software is in decline, but it's kind of invisible. You can't see the inside of a program. Look at construction. What amazing buildings were built lately compared to what was built in the past. Look at transportation. What transportation systems were built lately compared to what was built in the past? Look at engineering. What new sources of energy technology were invented compared to what was invented in the past? Material science, all this stuff. Sometimes, like with material science, you may have limited knowledge of the field, but that's what your computer's for. You can look it up. We kind of haven't been doing that much for 30 or 40 years, is what you probably find, with some notable outliers, right? So one dude is responsible for electric cars and fucking rocket ships, okay? If that dude weren't there, you can imagine what the progress of both of those fields would be. Now, it is very, very obvious. If you just look, all you have to do is just look. We are not building a lot of Hoover dams or Golden Gate bridges or anything like that, right? What happened? Something happened, and it's major. We lost our ability to do certain classes of things, or lost the will to do them. And after enough not doing them, the ability goes away anyway, because these things are hard and you need to practice them in order to know how to do them. Dude, when was the last time the USA actually won a war, by the way? We spend more than any other nation on earth on the military. When was the last time we actually succeeded completely at a military objective? What's our track record there? So here's what I'm saying. The thing is, that has a cause. And the cause is part of the cause is what we as a culture accept and decide is okay, and how we decide what to do, right? And so when I say something like, I don't think it's a good idea to gossip about new programming languages that nobody knows anything about, it's part of that. I'm saying this is part of who we are now that is not good. All these things that I mentioned, our inability to make progress in all these departments, is not orthogonal to how we decide to spend our time every day, right? It's just not. And you have to fix what you can fix, right? I'm not in charge of the federal government. I wouldn't know how to be in charge of the federal government, but you have to fix what you can fix. And so that's where I'm coming from. Also, by the way, so part of what's feeding my distaste for the what do you think about this new programming language question is I know that people have that about what I'm doing, and I've seen a little bit of it. I try to stay away from all of that, but almost 100% of the commentary is just misinformed, has a completely incorrect idea of what I'm doing and why. Certainly to the extent it's informed, it tends to be very old and out of date, like informed by those early videos, which are very, very different compared to what the language is today. And agenda driven, but it's not a mistake that this information is inaccurate because people, the utility for most people is not in whether the information is true or false. The utility is in whether they can use the information as scoring for their team, their political team, which for programmers is often a programming language or a programming paradigm thing, and or just to boost their ego. And so almost all the information when people are gossiping about what I do is complete trash. So therefore, there's no reason to expect all the gossip about anything else not to be complete trash as well. That's what I'm saying, is like you're engaging in swimming in trash. Now, there is such a thing as high quality discussion about that sort of thing, but that would require you to go program in this language for a year or two and me to go program in this language for a year or two. And then we come back and have a conversation. Otherwise, it's pointless, right? Isn't that how a lot of information and news actually are? You mean the swimming in trash? Yes, that's part of my point. Like even mainstream news is this thing that I'm talking about now.